Hey there, bread lovers! Welcome to our channel in today's video. Today we're diving into the world of sourdough, but with a twist. We're making homemade sourdough English muffins. These fluffy golden brown muffins are the perfect balance of tangy and soft with a crunchy exterior. Plus, they're way better than store-bought. Stick around as we walk through every step from mixing to cooking to storage so that you can enjoy those beautiful craggy nooks and crannies. Grab your starter and let's get baking. You ever wonder how to make those warm, fluffy English muffins that you just die for on a Sunday morning? Well, you're in the right place today. I'm going to show you how to make some of those with sourdough. And all you need is some sourdough, salt, some honey, milk, and flour, of course. So we've got 150 grams of flour, 125 grams of milk, 5 grams of honey, and 50 grams of starter, and a little bit of salt, about 5 grams of salt. And I'm going to mix all this up, and then we'll let it set overnight so that it'll rise. This is the bulk fermentation that sourdough goes through. It takes it a while, a little different than yeast. Takes it a little more while to ferment and get that rise that you want. But I've made these before and they've turned out delicious. That's the reason I'm going to share this with you, because they turned out so well. And I'll also share the recipe in the comments down below. But these are very easy to make. It's just mix this all together, let it rise, and then cut them out with a cookie cutter or a biscuit cutter or something like that. Put them in a cast iron skillet, and we'll show this a little later after we get through with the bulk fermentation. So let's get started mixing this up. It's just a matter of putting everything together and doing that. So put in our milk. Our honey goes in. And you notice that I talked about this in weight, which makes it very easy then to change how much of this you make. But if we wanted to increase that, then knowing the weight of the flour would be 100%, then I could very easily just change the rest of my recipe knowing what the percentage is for the sourdough, the milk, the honey, and the salt. Putting it in any bowl works just fine. I like a clear bowl, and I like this one because then I can see when the dough has nearly doubled in size. And that's what I'm going to look for, is for this to just nearly double in size. It'll set overnight to do that. And being cold, it may take a little longer. All of this depends a whole lot on the temperature of your house and the humidity of your house. All those kind of things come into play when you're making bread. It's not a serious thing if it's a little bit different from time to time. I'm no expert at this. I certainly enjoy doing it, but I've noticed that sometimes I'm going, my dough's a little dry, my dough's a little wet. And then when I really think about it, it's because of the atmospheric conditions outside the house, which certainly affect the way things are on the inside as well. So here we are. We got our dough nice and mixed up. So what I'll do now is put a plastic cover over this and let it set overnight and watch it rise. And then we'll take it out, we'll spread our dough out, cut it, and go from there. So hang in there, we'll get this done. I'm going to do some stretches here to build a little more of the gluten and give this a little more structure. Then I can put it into the refrigerator and keep it up for a couple of days, 2 to 3 days, and then come back and do my English muffins. But it was snowy last night, so we're not going anywhere today. So I plan on baking these today. So what I'm going to do is some stretches here to kind of form this into a ball. build the structure, the gluten of the dough. Then I'm going to let it rest for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and pick up from there. As you'll see, this kind of deflates a little bit as we stretch and fold it. This will build it into a ball, build that gluten in here, which will help hold things together. It is a little sticky. These English muffins do turn out very well. I missed them this morning with my usual breakfast. We didn't have any. We've got some bread in the freezer that we need to take out, and then I could have had some. And that's what we do with these. We bake a bunch, we freeze some, and we keep some out because we can always take out what we need when we need them. So we got a nice ball here. So I'm going to cover this back up and let it rest for 30 minutes. Then we'll come back and roll it out and then cut them into the muffins themselves. We'll let that rest for 30 minutes before we start cooking. So hang in there with us. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. 30 minutes is up. Got the dough here. I spread some semolina flour here. We don't have any cornmeal. But semolina flour or, real fine cornmeal, some flour, something to just keep the dough from sticking. Put a little on my hand here, so hopefully that'll help me not stick to the dough. And out we'll come with this. And then we'll spread this out so that it is 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch thick. You want it thin enough that it will cook all the way through once we put it into the cast iron skillet. So we'll spread this out. You can use a rolling pin, use your hands. I've read that if it starts to pull back too much, you can wet it just a little bit with some water. That will kind of help loosen it up a little bit. This seems to be holding in place all right. Get this kind of uniform all the way around. This should make 8 to 10. Muffins. I've got a beverage shaker lid that I'm going to use. I'm going to dip it in a little bit of oil. I've had trouble before with those sticking, and hopefully when I do that, it'll help them just drop right out of there and maintain their shape. Okay, I've got my dough all pressed out. Now I'm going to cut up the muffins, and what I'll do is cut them, whatever left over dough, spread that back out, cut it again. Don't know if this will help, but I'm going to put a little oil on there just to see. Coming out nicely.
I like that little cutter thing you have there because you've got the handle.
Yeah, this works good. The first time I made these, I tried a biscuit cutter. It didn't work as well as what this does. So I'm liking this a whole lot better. Again, you don't have to go out and buy a lot of fancy equipment to be able to make sourdough bread or any of the other things. Use what you got at home. When you think about it, my grandparents for sure, in the day and time that they grew up and were cooking, they didn't have a lot of fancy gadgets. So why do we think that in the 21st century we got to have all these fancy gadgets to get something done, when really what you have around the house works fine? Just kind of got to think through what you're going to try to do and put it together and do it. Press these out. Got an 8 there right now. Try to get these a similar thickness. Okay, I'm going to let these sit, and whenever you handle the dough, you need to let them rest a while. So I've got my skillet preheating now, but I'm going to cover these and let those rest for a few minutes. Then we'll come back, throw them on the skillet, get them cooked.
So how long are you going to let them rest?
About 30 minutes.
All right. See you in 30 minutes.
All right. Okay, these have rested, and now we're going to plop them into the skillet. I preheated that. It needs to be a medium heat. Of course, cast iron carries a good heat, and that's good and warm for sure. So we'll put as many in here as we can to give room to turn them as well. Got a feeling these colder temperatures we're having today may impact how much these things rise. We'll see.
So how long are you going to cook them?
It takes about 6 minutes per side. So we'll cook these for 6 minutes on this side, flip them over. We don't want them to be to burn, so put this timer on for 6 minutes, because I have a tendency to let time run. It could have been 6 minutes, it could have been 20 minutes, you never know. My buzzer went off at 6 minutes, but these aren't quite brown on that side, so I adjusted the temperature on my skillet just a little bit to bring it up a little bit higher. So we'll leave these on there just for another minute or two and get them good and brown. Then we'll flip them and do it again. Okay, you can see it's golden brown. You know, I said 6 minutes to cook these. It will vary depending on the temperature of your skillet, your stove, those kind of things. That one's not quite brown. They cook a little over 6 minutes. That's kind of a gauge, but you can tell a difference in that and the center one, which again is probably from the skillet itself. You know, cast iron is a pretty good conductor of heat. That's the reason I'm using that one. But we'll go ahead and flip these others. The thing you want to do is cook them slower, not fast, because you want the dough to be cooked in the middle. These are looking good here. Some of these outside ones a little bit not quite as brown, but they will still be cooked in the middle, and that's the main thing. I already know a couple of things I'd do a little differently. We are working by an outside wall, by an outside window, and it is very chilly, and I think that has made a difference in the dough, but they have risen very nicely in the skillet. So we'll let these cook 6 to 8 minutes until they're brown on the other side, then we'll take them off. We've reached the cook time on these. You can see I've got one out that is brown. These are nice and brown on both sides. They are good and warm, which you would expect coming out of a nice hot skillet. Leave that one in a little longer and leave that one in just a little longer. They're not quite brown. I'm going to put my others on here. We'll finish these up. All right, the last two. Learned a few lessons. One of the things I always want to do is turn my stove off. But a couple of things I thought about today was you really need to be patient with these. You don't want to rush them. You want to have the right temperature. And this bigger cast iron skillet seemed like the middle was hotter, even though cast iron should distribute that heat equally. The middle was hotter, so I may use a little smaller skillet next time. But you want to make sure that they get nice and golden brown on each side before you flip them over. These rose up nicely. They're looking good. Probably could have made a pretzel out of this one instead, but it'll be a nice little snack to munch on. But follow us, like us, subscribe so you don't miss anything. We have a video come out every 2 weeks. But those are some lessons I learned today, is you got to be patient with it. Again, I should have turned the temperature up in the house because working over here by the cold, and it's cold outside, probably impacted the time of the rise and those kind of things. So let me know what you think and comment down below. Would love to hear from you.